invite the distinguished representative of Barbados to take the floor.
Mr. President, Barbados aligns itself with the statements delivered by Uganda on behalf of the Group of 77 in China, by St. Lucia on behalf of the Caribbean community, and by St. Vincent and the Grenadines on behalf of CELAC. The purposes and principles of the United Nations are founded on the respect for sovereign equality of states, non-interference in their internal affairs, the rights of peoples to self-determination, the peaceful settlement of disputes, and the maintenance of friendly relations among states. The peaceful coexistence of our states and the sustainable development of our peoples require us all to abide by these principles. For these reasons, Barbados opposes the imposition of unilateral punitive measures, especially when they involve the extraterritorial application of legislation that violates international law and restricts freedom of trade and navigation and the sovereignty and freedom of states. Barbados views the continued imposition of the economic, commercial, and financial embargo against the Republic of Cuba to run counter to both the letter and the spirit of the UN Charter. Mr. President, the annual report of the Secretary General presents an impressive catalogue of submissions by member states. These highlight a shared perspective of opposition to the efforts to isolate Cuba, which ultimately inhibits the development of normal economic and cultural relations, distorts trade and investment, and impedes legitimate business opportunities among neighboring states. When my Prime Minister, the Honorable Mia Moore-Motley, delivered her remarks at the recent G77 and China summit, which took place in Havana in September of this year, she observed that the indomitable Cuban spirit continues to shine in spite of 60-plus years of a callous, cruel, and crippling economic blockade. Indeed, as part of its submission to the Secretary General's report, the government of Barbados acknowledged with deep appreciation that, in spite of the blockade, Cuba has provided invaluable support to the National Health Service of Barbados, including sending under contract agreement medical personnel to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. Cuba remains a beacon for South-South cooperation. Mr. President, the combination of all that I have said so far, together with the multiple times that we and others have expressed these very sentiments, both within and outside of this Assembly, leaves Barbados with no other option than to reiterate, once again, its call for Cuba to be freed from these harsh and debilitating measures, as well as the removal of Cuba from the State Department's list of countries that allegedly sponsor terrorism, which is equally, if not more, debilitating. Barbados continues to maintain excellent relations with the United States of America and Cuba. In this spirit, too, we further urge the government of the United States to engage in a constructive dialogue with the government of Cuba aimed at normalizing relations. Such a step would remove a source of tension and conflict and improve the prospects for peace, development, and cooperation in our region. In support of these principles of international law and the United Nations Charter, Barbados, as in previous years, fully supports the draft resolution before the General Assembly entitled Necessity of Ending the Economic, Commercial, and Financial Embargo imposed by the United States of America against Cuba. We will vote in favor of the adoption of the draft resolution before the General Assembly. I thank you.
I should like to thank the distinguished representative of Barbados,